Hi, I'm Anna Marie Cox. And Dan, did you watch that presidential candidate's big speech last night?
Hi, I'm Daniel Dresner, and Anna, I sure did, and it was super weird when the candidate held up a baby as a human shield.
Yeah, I think it might ruin his chances. I really do.
Well, we're in crazy times, but I got to admit, that might be like a step too far. I agree.
That might be enough. There's a lot that's proven not enough.
You can hold a baby on Fifth Avenue as a human shield. Turns out that actually does do it.
Yep. That's the thing the metaphor was missing is holding up a baby.
Yep.
As a human shield. All right. So welcome to Space the Nation. This is a special patrons only episode. So we are still going to talk about science fiction through certain lenses, and those lenses are, Dan,
failed deterrence
and would you shoot baby Hitler theory. I don't know what that's called, but would you shoot baby Hitler? The would you shoot baby Hitler hypothesis.
I think it's the baby Hitler paradox, actually. So
there you go. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. So this is, as maybe aficionados of the genre would be able to tell, we're going to be talking about David Cronenberg's The Dead Zone, which is available on Paramount Plus, and Dan, you can watch it on Amazon.
Oh, good to know.
So I did, but there was no trivia. Weirdly, or I couldn't find it. Anyway, so why are we talking about this movie, Dan? Let's be honest.
Let's be blunt. We're talking about this because we are recording this, I believe, a week after there was an attempted assassination of Donald Trump when he was giving his last sort of campaign rally before the RNC, as well as the day after Trump's 90-minute incoherent mess of an acceptance speech that frankly calls into question some cognitive abilities on his part.
I will point out that that speech was about as long as the movie. Like, yeah. I started the movie about when the speech started.
Right.
And then the movie ended and I was like, I wonder, should I catch the end of this? And I did. I did catch the end of it.
Oh no. Oh no.
Man, you didn't. Okay, so I thought you betrayed me because we both agreed we're going to watch this movie instead of watching the speech.
Yes.
And I guess I slightly betrayed you. So it would have been like a mutual betrayal. But because you wrote a piece about it for your Substack, which is Dresner's World on Substack.
Yeah.
And turns out you wrote it based on the transcript, which by God, Dan, I mean, how did you get through the transcript? That's worse.
Oh.
That's like a...
You know what it is? I will say this. Is
it because you're used to reading undergraduate papers?
Yes, and I'm used to listening to Trump. It's a combination of those two. Like reading through the transcript. First of all, it takes way less than 90 minutes. It's not like it takes 5 minutes. It takes longer than that, but it takes way less than 90 minutes. And also, like, I know enough of his tropes. So like, it was like, oh, he's talking about the wall. Okay, I can skip this. Or like, I was just looking for
Hannibal Lecter, going through the Hannibal Lecter riff. Okay.
The late, great Hannibal Lecter, which, by the way, he's not late. Hannibal Lecter.
We don't know.
No, I mean, no, he survives Silence of the Lambs. He survives the sequel Hannibal. Seems like he's not. I mean, maybe he's dead now, but Anthony Hopkins is still very much alive. There's every reason to believe that Lecter's alive. It's just very weird.
Yeah, so you watched that speech. Led the transcript, and I watched the last bit of it, and I just want to say he does not look like a well man by the end of it. I mean,
even like Trump standards is what you're saying.
Aside from the ear pillow, which is the most... And then, like, all the people at the convention wearing, like, sympathy ear pillows.
It was like Mean Girls. It was like, it's like, that was my response to that. It was like, oh, I get it now. Trump is Rachel George.
Leave it in, Karen. Leave it in.
No, I want to say either Renee Rapp or Rachel McAdams. What is the character's name? I'm actually blanking.
Rachel McAdams.
No, Rachel McAdams.
Oh, the character's name.
Actress.
Oh, the Rachel. I don't remember. I don't remember either.
Regina George.
Regina George. Yes. Okay. Regina and the Plastics. Yes. Okay. Yeah. I mean, and then all those people wearing sympathy ear pillows, which is like stolen ear valor. Like, I think they'd get mad if like Democrats did that. That's what I think.
Oh, they would mock it to death. Yes.
There's a lot, but that hypocrisy is not a useful paradigm for judging like what happens in the Republican Party right now.
No, it really isn't.
So this is why, and I was a person who brought up Dead Zone to you.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm not the only person who had some Dead Zone thoughts, although of course someone did actually die. And there was a tragic death
there. Yeah. Oh,
don't want to make too much. Yeah, we don't make too much fun of the whole thing. Although the ear pill and whatnot, there's like I feel, and like the crassness of Trump's use of that fellow that died.
Oh, it was worse than that. Like it wasn't just that. Like I think in the next paragraph or in the next segment of the speech, he started bragging about how much money came in after the assassination attempt. I'm like, that's like a QVC level, Yeah, that's QVC level banter. It was tacky even for Trump, which I didn't think was possible.
So I feel like we're inoculated from kind of like using that as a jumping off point to talk about this movie. Mm-hmm. So we should talk about the movie. Dan.
Yes. So let's quickly get through the plot, and then we can talk about the themes.
Thoughts. Just our thoughts
about it. Yes. So the plot's actually really simple. So here we go.
Indeed.
Is. Johnny Smith is the perfect boyfriend, Anna. He's an English teacher dating a fellow teacher named Sarah. He carries her books, walks her to the door, and does not pressure her into premarital sex. But then he goes and gets into a car accident, leaving him in a coma for 5 years. When he awakens, he learns that Sarah is married and has a child. He also discovers that he has second sight, the ability to see other people's past and future when he touches them. With this second sight, Johnny is able to warn a nurse that her daughter is in a burning house, help the Castle Rock police find a serial killer, and prevent one of his students from drowning in an icy river. However, when he shakes the hand of an ambitious third-party Senate candidate named Josiah Bartlett, Greg Stilson, he sees a world in which, as president, Stilson orders the start of World War III. This leaves Johnny with a pretty big choice to make. Anna, did I miss anything? I know that was a brief plot, but like you're a King aficionado. Any major differences between the film and the novel?
It abbreviates a lot, but that's to be expected.
Of course. That's
I feel almost like this movie is an art house version of a King novel. Mm-hmm. It's just very impressionistic and kind of tone poem-y in a way.
For King, there's no jump scares whatsoever. There's none of that level of horror. And actually, there are very few scenes that I think are legitimately there's some scenes in this film where it's like, oh yeah, this is definitely a Stephen King film, but it feels more like I don't know how to describe it.
It's a Cronenberg movie. I would say that's where the difference I want to make. It's like all the most successful Stephen King adaptations, it leaves King far behind.
Yeah.
It's a director's choice. And the strong Brian De Palma, even though you and I don't like the Shining movie, it is Kubrick it is a work of art. It's a work of art I don't like.
Or even
but
Frank
it is a work
Darabont.
of art.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the best Stephen King adaptations kind of just take King as a suggestion.
It's a jumping off point. Right.
Yeah. And I think I still love the book. The book deals a lot more with grief. Johnny Smith's grief over this loss that he undergoes without dying. He loses all this stuff. The book also deals with his mother's religious fanaticism, and I think playing with the idea of, are people inherently good or not? And also, are people meant to be saved? Are people meant to work to save each other? Is there a higher power that will prevent bad things from happening, or do we need to take things into our own hands? Is there a master plan? If we do something, is that part of a master plan? Right? So questions of agency and whatnot. I also feel like, I think Walken is really good, and it is funny to see a movie where Christopher Walken is like the good guy, like a pure good guy. There is no shading of menace to him, right? He is he is eerie. He's has sort of like an
I'm going to remind you that the film ends with him with a rifle attempting to
But he's not
assassinate someone.
scary. But he's not.
But he's not scary. No,
he's not scary, and he's not evil. In fact, that's a really important part of the film. Is he's not
he's
evil.
Definitely not evil. No, I agree with you on that. But let me put it this way.
And he, even with the gun, I would say there's a lack of menace to him.
Yes. Although that's also true of many assassins, I would argue.
But it's not true of many walk-in roles.
That is very true.
That is the distinction I am making.
Yeah. And also, what's particularly true is the scenes with Walken pre-accident, where it's not just that he's a good guy; he's like the most nebbishy good guy imaginable. The movie was made in I think in the early 1980s, but like that, those first scenes feel like they're from like a 1950s film almost.
Yeah. And just in general, I guess the kind of what I'm trying to say is the book spends a lot more time in Johnny's head and having him kind of puzzle through the rights and wrongs of his responsibility. Like, what is his responsibility? Like, what can he not do and still feel okay with himself, right? And what are the limits of of trying to help people in that overwhelming him? I mean, I think it's a much more philosophical investigation. It's also not, there's no jump scares, but there is more, I think it more successfully communicates the menace of the Stilson character. This, I think, really depends on Martin Sheen bringing it.
Martin Sheen chews through everything in this film. I mean, I think this was post recovery, but there was a small part of me that wondered, so how much cocaine did Cronenberg give Martin Sheen before he started? And
also because it's not written that way for the movie. I remember asking myself the question, it's made clear, King makes clear, I can't remember how, the shadiness of Stilson early on and his cynicism, whereas in the movie it's just kind of communicated by his hail fellow well met, glad handing. There's no politics to Stilson to make clear that he's a douche.
No, he's the beginning. There is a scene with him, if you remember, where he intimidates the editorial.
Yeah, which an editorial might destroy somebody's career, Dan.
Also, I hate to say this, that scene actually made no logical sense because he's holding the op-ed, or he's got the op-ed that's already been printed, and be like, you're not going to run this. It was no, it's been run, and in this day, it's not like you could take it off the internet.
Oh, I guess I thought maybe he was holding up the preprint cut, the layout.
Maybe, but he said something it was the night, it was late that night.
Yeah, it was the night before. Yeah, but that's still, I don't know.
My take. I mean, I assume if you want it to work for the movie, you assume he's going to make a call or something and stop it, but you can't do that close to the deadline.
Yeah, I don't know. That part, even as the person who's the journalist, I guess I just assumed that he was they hadn't gone to press yet. And you can go to press pretty late. I mean, especially if it's a small town newspaper. They might not go to, they might be a weekly. Who knows? What I thought was funny is, oh no, an op-ed really destroying a political career.
Right.
Yeah, that. Ooh, not an op-ed, says the Trump campaign.
It was an editorial, to be fair. So not an op-ed, it was a newspaper editorial.
Oh no, not an editorial endorsing another candidate.
But I will say, let me put it this way. In the time in which this film was set, that was a logical fear. Those editorials would have counted for more back then. So that's that.
I'm trying to think of some other significant. Oh, sorry. What did you want to say?
Well, no, particularly for a third-party candidate, that was the other weird thing to hear. He was a third-party candidate. If an editorial comes out against him, that's in the time of the movie, that would have had some significance. So I understood the logic.
I'm still trying to kind of go with what the differences are, and I think it is just that the emotional depths are plumbed a little bit more. I do think this is a weird, but I recommend it. As far as if you haven't seen it, even if you know the rough plot outline, I think I would recommend it. And
I would recommend it.
It's strange.
Too, but there are parts that like this way. You talk about the psychological depths, and I think one of the issues I had with this film is there are scenes that made no sense to me whatsoever. So here's the scene that just blew my mind, which is when Sarah comes over to Johnny's parents' house with her 10-month-old, to say hi. And then the following two things happen. First, she puts the baby on the bed for a nap with no, like, that baby could have easily rolled off that bed. I'm sorry, as a parent, like, I was looking at that like, no, put the baby on the ground, put a blanket on the floor, and then the baby sleeps. That's fine. Do not put her on the bed.
Surrounded by pillows.
Yeah, or surrounded by pillows. That also would have been reasonably okay. That she did neither of those things. Freaked me out. But more importantly, she puts the baby to bed, then comes into the living room, and you have no idea this is coming, seduces Johnny, and then implies that's it. Like, which is fine, but like it was just like, whoa, that was just very strange.
Okay, so that scene is in the book. And
wow.
That's one of the places where I will say in the book it works.
Okay.
Because there's the longing between the two of them of what might have been is set up a little more thoroughly.
Yeah, in the film it's not. I mean, it was,
I think that's a weak space.
It's a very weak space.
Between the two of them in general. Like, I think his relationship with his dad, his relationship with the student, like both are more
there's more chemistry in those.
More chemistry. In the book, like it's actually a pretty sweet scene because it is like she loves her husband, but there is this like road, sliding doors for lack of a better term, like and they still love each other. Like that's sort of the thing in the book is much understood. Like they didn't stop, neither of them stopped loving the other. Like it just, she thought he would be basically dead.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if in the movie it's made, or in the book it's made clear whether or not she set him on the child on the floor or not, but it is made clear in the book that the kid is like away in a place where he won't accidentally, like it will not disturb. I remember that.
Good.
I remember like
I figured as much.
No danger of being scarred for life. Like, right.
Also, the kid's 10 months, so
that's okay, fine.
Yeah.
But that's weird. Let's see, other overarching thoughts. I feel like there's like I don't know how we distinguish this from Debris Field since we're not scripting this, but what is also in the book is the Holocaust survivor doctor.
So,
and I liked that character in both.
So what's striking to me about, first of all, I'm actually happy. Do you know the actor who plays him in the movie is named Herbert Lom, and it's actually fascinating because do you know what his best known role? Mm-mm. He was Inspector Clouseau's superior in all of the Inspector Clouseau films. So he in those films he just plays like an idiot,
a foil.
Yes, a foil, exactly. And like in this, he actually has gravitas. But I think in some ways, one of my issues with the film is that character. He's actually contradictory on the question of fate and agency. So in the beginning, Johnny tells him, "Your mother is alive," just so you know, like, because we see a flashback scene where he was put on a cart as the Nazis were invading Poland. His thought his mother has been dead for all this time. Turns out she's alive. And, you see him calling her, and then he tells Johnny that he hung up because it wasn't meant to be, that he wasn't meant to have a relationship with her. And I was like, okay, I'm not entirely sure I buy that, but sure, whatever. But then in the end of the film, Johnny says, "Would you kill baby Hitler, or would you kill Hitler?" And he says, "Yes, I would absolutely kill Hitler because I'm a doctor and I would want to save lives." And yeah, go ahead.
Those are two different questions.
The way he phrased it,
I don't think those are the same questions. Also, maybe this is a bias of the book, but in the book, it's made clear he doesn't want to disrupt this woman's life. Like.
That's insane, actually. I'm going to vigorously disagree with this. If a woman thought, first of all, the mother would have hoped that the child would have escaped. The mother wouldn't have thought that the child had died.
Maybe also, in his, it's like, it is actually more like he just doesn't know what to do with this information.
And I get that he doesn't know what to do. But the idea of it wasn't meant to be, I didn't want to disturb her, that is an insane logic. And I
don't know.
I have a problem with that.
You have a problem with that personally. I guess I can believe that it's just such an overwhelming piece of information. If he's like, and this doctor's in his 60s, right? Like So the mother's in her 80s.
You have to think the mother's in the 80s. Yeah. But let me put it this way.
I think I get like, oh, I don't know what to do with this. I mean, him saying it's not meant to be, like, I guess that you're trying to peg it on that. But I also feel like the weight of difference between whether or not you contact your mother and whether or not you save millions of Jews from dying are two different things.
Fair enough. Let me put it this way.
Like, I mean, Dan, I mean, let's pause for a second, right? Okay. Those are two different things.
Those are completely two different things. However, let me put it this way. I think the plot would have been improved if I would have been fine with him not talking to her immediately. That I get. It would have been overwhelming. It actually might have been better if you had seen throughout the film him wrestling with this decision and then finally reaching out. Because then I think it actually would have made the final conversation better.
I agree. And that's where I would say, I guess I'm giving the movie a little bit grace because I think that the movie has just a very streamlined kind of story to tell.
Yeah.
And is
this is a short film.
It is not following a lot of the tangents that are raised by it. Like, for instance, like something that I thought, and I can't remember if they take care of this in the book in some way, or if it's just a dangling issue in the movie, which is that if Johnny has a relationship with the sheriff department in Castle Rock, shouldn't he be solving every crime they have? Like,
let me put it this way. What I did,
every murder at least, like, shouldn't they be calling him in? Like, I mean, so I think what I'm saying is, like, there's other things that are raised by this movie they don't get to. I think that the movie is trying to tell a very specific story about Johnny, right? Mm-hmm. And about what the burdens are of this kind of knowledge and what the choices you make if you are burdened with this kind of knowledge.
I think, again, this is where I actually think they could have added a little bit to the film if there had been more conversation about this, because the way it's treated in the film, there's first the sort of medical trade-off. The implication is that every time Johnny does this, it's costing him a little bit in terms of his health. That's fine. I think that's actually one way to put it. But it's more, as you say, the sort of psychic burden of having to constantly deal with this. And, like, there's reference made to it, like he shows the closet full of letters and things like that. But you're right, like, there should have been something more. I think it could have been an even better film, I guess would be the way to put it, if they had taken some of the stuff from the novel, I guess, or gone a different way and sort of just talked about that moral wrestling.
Yeah, I think the movie is not a great movie.
Yeah.
By any means. It's not like, oh, you have to see this.
No, but it's interesting.
It is interesting, and I do think on some level it is like a little art house film. Like, it's just, it's like a little experiment or something. And do you want to talk about the fact that it's Cronenberg a little bit more here?
Yeah, please, go ahead. Yeah.
It does not feel like a Cronenberg movie very much.
Correct.
It doesn't look like a Cronenberg movie for sure. Like, it has such cluttered and almost oppressively cluttered sets. Like, it is just, it feels very close.
Yeah.
Which I think is intentional, though. I think that the kind of like the suffocating feel of it, claustrophobic feel of it, gets to the claustrophobia that Johnny experiences having all this stuff happening at the same time in his head, right? Like, having all these responsibilities in his head. I think that the relationship between the parents, between the tutor, the tootie, and the wealthy parent is very Cronenberg-esque in a way. Like, kind of just weird. And again, like only
in a Cronenberg universe could that happen.
Yeah. It was filmed. I just did a very cursory look at the Wikipedia, and it was filmed in Toronto, Cronenberg's native Toronto, in the middle of winter.
That tracks, yeah.
Which is why it feels very realistically cold, I guess. Yeah, like that seems to be as a character in the movie almost, right? Like, it's just cold all the time, which I think kind of translates into the tone of the film.
The other thing I would say, I mean, I'm willing to be corrected because I'm not the biggest expert on Cronenberg, but the other thing that this film does not have, which is a little more typical of other Cronenberg, is there is zero body horror in this film.
Right, or sex.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
I
there was
mean,
that,
there's
but
one,
yeah.
there's, but like, there's no
But it's
sensuality.
no, there's no history of violent sex. Let's put it that way. Yes.
Yeah. Although
Yeah.
I did have a note to myself where the truck that he crashes into is a milk truck.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, that's very Cronenberg. That's real gross. That's real gross, like Cronenberg.
Yeah.
Because there was a scene of like the milk dripping down.
Yeah. Cronenberg's choice of making it a milk truck, that definitely. What I'm curious about is for my money, the best scene in this film, or the best shot in this film, is the first time you see Johnny have this sort of second sight where he's in a bed, but the bed is on fire, and he sees like the fire, like the fishbowl explodes and so on and so forth. And just that one shot of him surrounded by fire looking at the scene was just incredibly effective. But what I didn't know was whether that was King or Cronenberg or both.
You could say it's a little bit of both. I mean, I think the way that you, from my recollection, the way you would get there from King, or the way that King suggests that, is that, and it's just only barely suggested in the movie, is that in the book, the nurse notices, hold on a second, Karen. Is that in the book, the nurse notices that Johnny's like sweating. Like sweating up a storm.
Oh, I see.
And so there is this there is this hint that like he's experiencing heat that is not in the actual room.
Again, this was one of the things I actually would have preferred to see, because in the film, Johnny is transported into his visions in the first couple that we see, in the one with the nurse, in the one where he holds the victim, the Castle Rock Killers thing. But then when he sees Stillson, he's not there. And I actually think it would have been better if he had been in the room witnessing the Stillson things. And it definitely would have been creepier in the last one where Stillson kills himself. So just saying.
Yeah. Spoiler alert for Dead Zone.
Yeah.
I think, or he also is not he's not there when the hockey team drowns.
When the hockey team drowns.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, just, well, I guess there is a nuclear war in this movie.
There is.
So I almost don't need to ask you, but I will.
Go ahead.
Is there IR in this movie, Dan?
Let's send mediocrity to hell, Anna, because there is some IR in this film, although it's kind of mediocre, if we're going to be honest.
Okay.
Which is to say, yes, let's talk about the most IR scene is this bizarre thing that I assume was supposed to be Camp David, in which... No, you laugh. I mean, did you look at the setting? I think it's Camp David.
Yeah, I think it is too. Yeah, but are you going to the scanner? Although, hey, Cronenberg reference, scanner.
Yes, there we go. The scanner. But like, yeah, it's this. So the scene that Johnny sees is Stillson as president ordering his Secretary of Defense, I assume, to authorize the nuclear strike, and then, you know, as a couple of other staffers finally run up and say, no, there's a peaceful solution. He says, nope, we're done. You know, the missiles have launched. Where that's that. It was, let's just put it this way, not a terrifically realistic portrayal.
No.
Launching a nuclear war. But there were two incredibly creepy things, and these were accurate things, in my opinion, on this. The first was, let's face it, when we're comparing to recent presidential candidates that have been assassinated, basically those who are sycophants to power. You know, so the Secretary of Defense in the end bends to the will of the president because he feels he has no choice. But far creepier than that is the character of Roger Stewart, who is the father of the student that Johnny is mentoring, also clearly very wealthy. The first time we see Stillson is Stillson talking to him, trying to get money from him. And Roger is very affable. It makes it very clear later, like, he actually says, you know, to Johnny, can't they see through this guy? But then Johnny asks him, wait, I thought you were friendly with him. And Roger Stewart's explanation for why he's friendly with Stillson is chilling and way too on point with current politics, which is to say, yeah, I'm friendly with him because he might win. And, you know, I don't want to be on the other side of him if he does win. And that it's basically the implication of, you know, even if it's someone that you think isn't total fraud or a sham or someone who's even terrifying, you're going to appease them if you're a businessman because you just want to get by. I want to make clear this.
Oh.
Yeah. Go ahead. No, go.
I want to make clear the scanners reference. To me, the depiction of how like the mechanics of a nuclear war would start is like a Canadian's idea of how it works in America, maybe. Like it is clearly someone who's never even seen like an American pop culture, like how the codes and stuff work. It's like this briefcase with a hand scanner, which I guess is pretty high tech for 1983.
I think Cronenberg was going for high tech. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Where both the general and the president have to have their hands scanned. So biometric ID is actually maybe safer than the keys or codes or whatever. Yeah. Hey, wait, what did we see where the president is the code? But that was Greenland?
No, that's no, that was Geostorm. That was Geostorm.
Geostorm. The president is the code.
Is the code. That was one of the best lines. Oh, I did also want to say, watching this film, he's obviously much younger, but it is a little terrifying how Trumpy Stillson is.
Oh yeah.
Like if you listen to his rhetoric, I mean, these are quotes that he says during his campaign rallies. One is, "Can anyone tell me what the hell is going on?" I mean, that is Trump basically.
Got to shut down the border, man.
Yeah. The people speak through me, you know. And then, look this way, Stillson coercing the editorial. I mean, it's laughable that he would care, but that is an entirely Trump move. Like there's no.
Well, it's catch and kill.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Like it's the catch and kill method.
Yeah, like this was a weird film for me in that there are parts of it that are ridiculously dated, but there are also parts of it that remain on point. That's would be the way to put it.
And what this makes me think is, how much I love Stephen King, but one of the things that I find kind of endearing about him is that he's such like an old school boomer liberal, and his politics haven't changed in 40 years. But and that's why I'm thinking that the Dead Zone, it's a little more explicit. That like, oh well, it's explicit. Doesn't he say something about black people? He does. He says something about.
He makes a joke
black
to
people
Roger
on
at the beginning.
Welfare or something.
No, he makes a joke to Roger at the beginning about how his opponent in one race was like paying black people. That also was pretty Trumpy, actually. And that his message was, keep the money, just vote for me. But yeah, it was.
That's very Trumpy. But like, I'm trying to remember, like, if it would be in keeping with Stephen King's character to kind of make the politics of Stillson a little more transparently like right wing.
Well, I was going to ask if that's a little more fleshed out in the book. That was one of the things I was curious about.
I am trying to remember, but I also think that in thinking about it just as in our moment, to not have as explicitly right-wing politics, to have that less sketched out does fit a Trumpy view of the world more, right? Mm-hmm. Like Trump's politics are fucking all over the place.
Yeah.
Like what makes him dangerous is his authoritarianism like his specific policies are terrible too, and racists and bigots take advantage of him. But like Stillson, the real problem here is megalomania and just supreme selfishness and messianic delusions, right? So,
but you speaking of King as sort of a boomer liberal does remind me. I have a question to ask you, and it's not the question I normally ask.
Oh, what is it?
Is there a recipe for hope after watching this film?
Oh, well, that, Dan, that is a thing I've been thinking about a lot, as you know. And it's, I don't know. I mean, I guess the reason I wanted to talk about this with you is that in some ways there isn't, right? Like in some ways this movie is like, oh no, you got to kill the guy. Like that's the only thing we can do is kill him. And I guess I don't want to believe that is true for our real world, right? And maybe it is. I mean, there's the baby Hitler hypothesis or theory, or what did you say, that baby Hitler paradox. I think in this political moment, and this is where I guess we get in a little trouble bringing up this movie in this political moment, but I do think there are reasons to hope, and that violence is not violence is not where we need to go, So it's not a recipe for hope in this film, but I do find myself seeking hope and some in some ways, recovering it in response to this movie. What were your thoughts about Hope? Kind of pondering our this movie in our conversation.
Well, okay, this is, I mean, how do I put this? As awful as Stillson is, I am still disturbed by the solution Johnny arrives at. Although you could argue that,
of course,
it's, it's horrifying, and the visuals are disturbing to me. Like, the movie ends, spoiler alert, with Johnny with a rifle trying to kill Stillson, and then Stillson uses the baby as a shield to stop that. But seeing him with a rifle, like from an elevated position, and what I'm trying to figure out is that more disturbing now, or was I don't know if I was disturbed when I watched it the first time. And it might be because I'm just older now, or it might be because the specter of violence, not so much political assassinations, but just mass shootings in general, have become so much more prevalent that that's what it actually evoked in me, and that was somewhat more disturbing. But I will say this: one way in sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, reference the book again, which is a way that the storyline is improved by spending more time with Johnny's thoughts. Is he struggles so much more. I mean, you can't really do that in this movie. The movie has to move along, right?
But it's not just that. Part of the issue is this entire conundrum is handled in the last 20 minutes. Like, that was the other part. That was,
and he does not struggle.
Right. No, he doesn't. But I mean, that was the thing. My memory of this film is primarily the last 20 minutes of it, which I thought was like most of the film was such interesting. But you're right. Like, I think in some ways it would have been better if you introduced Stillson earlier and you have that wrestling, that Johnny should have had. But as it's presented, it's disturbing. But I will say this, one thing that maybe one thing that you can take from this film that is somewhat more optimistic and you can be hopeful for is the film's premise, and maybe this is boomerish, but I don't know. I'd like to think it's just reality-based, is the idea that when a candidate behaves that badly, they will lose, that they're telling on themselves. And maybe this is naive of me, but I still have that hope. My expectation, I know, my expectation is that enough people remember what the current Republican candidate for president did and is continuing to do, and just don't want to deal with it. Now, maybe that is hopeful in the extreme, but it's worth remembering that it held true in 2020. It held true in 2022 as well. So we will see what happens going forward.
Technically held true in 2016 in terms of popular vote. True. It's just our fucked up electoral college.
Right. No, that's right. No, that's an excellent point.
And that's something to remember. You're right. Yeah. Like, so one of the most disturbing things that came out of the Republican National Convention, I'm going to get emotional, was there was a still zipping around social media of the mass printed signs that said mass deportations now.
Yeah.
And
yeah, no, it's pretty horrific.
It's unspeakable. Like,
and the weird thing about this, by the way, is that even if Trump wins, I guarantee you, if he actually tries to do this, and he will try to do it, it's going to be manifestly unpopular. It's going to generate, even people who want to crack down on the border aren't going to support this.
That doesn't mean they can't do it. I mean, that's one of the reasons why it's not fear mongering to envision like an incredibly oppressive authoritarian future.
Yeah.
Because the way that you would make mass deportations happen is to go against the will of the people. Right? Yeah. Is to oppress, what people actually want. But it's just, it was a sight of all these people just fucking mindlessly waving those mass printed signs.
Yeah.
Talk about telling on yourself. I mean, people, joke about Nuremberg rally, but my God, like it is, I write for a living. I have trouble summoning the words, but one of the things I thought about, if we're going to talk about like trying to recover some hope from this, is that this is not this does not look good.
Well,
to have this visual is fucking disgusting.
Let's put it this way, Anna. We're recording this the day after Trump accepted the nomination. This will come out at least 4 or 5.
Monday.
Yeah, probably a couple days after that. I will be hopeful that, contrary to the way that politics normally works, that Trump will not get a post-convention bounce from this, even though, by the way, he should be ripe for one, given the utter chaos that is going on the Democratic side of things right now.
Fuck. Like, we won't turn this into a politics.
No, let's not. But the point is that I actually think, weirdly, like Trump's acceptance speech, where he tried to nominally go for unity and then failed utterly in that attempt, beyond the mass printing of signs. In other words, all that shit is so creepy that, yes, there is a fraction of the American electorate that will go for it, absolutely, but it's not a majority. And I think when you see this stuff, it winds up being even more of a turnoff than Trump's campaign understands, and I am hopeful about that.
And when I say, my impulse would be like cynically say I hope so, but more in a database way, yes, it is a turnoff. The problem is, do the people who are turned off by it vote, and do they vote in sufficient numbers in swing states to make a difference?
And I think so. And I think they will, but I grant you, it's far from a sure thing.
Well, Dan, let's milk truck.
It's the debris field. This is where we get to things that we have not talked about till now about the film. Anna, I've got a few things. What do you have?
Well, I've got a few things too.
Go.
Medium amount of things. So at the beginning of the movie, he's like, "I got a surprise for you," right?
Yeah.
And was a surprise they go to a completely abandoned county fair.
Look, I forgot about that. That was Cronenberg. That was weird. That was a very weird date. Yeah.
A roller coaster in the middle of nowhere where they're the only patrons.
Yeah.
And it's fucking cold outside.
Yeah.
And yet there is someone running it. So, by the way, quick shout out to patron Bill Childs, who is a friend of the pod, friend of mine, who's a lawyer who has a sub-specialty or kind of a sideline that he also teaches courses on, which is called Recreation and Risk, which is about theme parks and the legal issues raised by them.
Oh, man. Okay.
And I edited his textbook about it, Dan.
I didn't know that. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, hey, I'm available, Dan, if you ever have a
good to know
manuscript it wasn't actually proofreading. What I did was kind of go through and like look for, it was more of like a writing thing than like I found the commas that were missing and stuff. So and I believe that is the name of the textbook, which is Recreation and Risk. You know what, Dan, give me a second. I'm going to look up his website so that people who are interested in this, and it is kind of fascinating. I won't take us on a tangent here.
Yeah.
But trust me, it's fascinating. While you go, I'll look up his website.
Okay. One thing is that I can see why they turned this also, the Dead Zone also became a TV show, I think, on USA with Anthony Michael Hall. And I'm not going to comment on the quality of the TV show, but I will say, watching this film, I see why they turned it. They thought it might be ripe for a TV show, because this is actually an extremely episodic film. Like, once he has the second sight, there's like the business with the serial killer, there's the business with the kid that he mentors, and then there's the business with Stilson. And like, I could see how they looked at this and thought, actually, we could turn this into an expanded, run. And so that made sense to me.
Okay, it's Bill Childs is the friend of the pod, and his website is recreationandrisk.com, and the book is out now from Carolina Academic Press. And again, it's mostly like a case law thing, and he wrote chapters introducing the case law. I found it fascinating. If you are a fan of theme parks and or gruesome stories about theme parks, run, don't walk.
Anna, can I ask you a question about the roller coaster scene? Because this was actually something that I didn't notice the first time I watched it. I'd forgotten, which is, we see Johnny have a headache while he's on the roller coaster.
Yes.
And there was a part of me that wondered, were we supposed to think that he would have had this gift emerge even without the accident?
Again, going on my somewhat hazy memory, I did read this after I got sober, so I can't say I think I read it. I did like a big Stephen King reread where I read most of his stuff in order again, like within the recent years. I believe that he is gifted with a touch of that prior to the head injury.
I see.
That
Okay.
there is a family connection,
Sure.
I think actually what the thing is, it might be that his mom has a touch of it. It's the shine. Dan.
I was going to say it's the
shine.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the shine. So
okay. Your turn.
Who goes first?
Oh,
okay.
No, I think it's your turn.
Okay. So I have just note chastity getting you in trouble in a horror movie. That's new and different.
That's true. That's a fair point. Absolutely fair. Yeah, that is pretty deviant.
Yeah. All right.
I will say, watching this film, when you see Johnny's mother, I was like, oh, Anna's right. King does have a specific type of religious nutcase mom. Yeah. And by the way, so two weird moms in this film. The first is Johnny's, who I will say makes an impression in the few scenes that she has, like very religious. But also, did you notice Colleen Dewhurst plays the serial killer's mom? And she's in there for like
Dobbs.
Oh, sorry, Dodd's mom. Yeah,
Frank Dodd's mom.
Yeah,
yes.
But like, it was a bizarre. I didn't like. She's there for like 5 minutes, and there's no real character to speak. It was just, I was sort of stunned. I mean, Colleen Dewhurst struck me as a pretty big deal as an actress. I was just surprised she took that. It was very.
So Frank Dodd is part of the expanded King universe. He is also shows up in Cujo and in other. He's part of the Castle Rock cast of characters. Yeah. And that's kind of all you. He also, I think, haunts Castle Rock because of that gruesome way that he dies. That was
the one I forgot. That was the one moment of body horror. Yes.
Oh yeah, that is like Oh, and it's off screen, but it's like super body horror. Yes.
Yeah.
I had hands over eyes.
No, I forgot. That was the one moment I was like, oh yeah, this is Cronenberg. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh wait, I think it's your turn.
Oh, okay. I found it to be interesting that Johnny was surprisingly unsqueamish about touching a dead body. I don't know.
Yes.
I
was expecting at least to kind of pause for a second. I mean, it was just that was pretty creepy. Yeah.
Especially if you knew you're going to be getting like a really up close and personal look at a serial killer.
Right.
Like I just would have been like, maybe just a light touch, maybe just a fingertip at first. Like, how much do I have to grab? No, he like goes for it. He gives her like a good handshake. Yeah. You know, like, way to go. I would not.
So, Christopher Walken in many ways is cast well in this. Like, it's an odd character, and like he is just an odd persona. The one time it doesn't work terribly well is when he is trying to persuade the kid's father not to take the kid to the hockey.
Oh.
Where, how to put this gently, he's not very persuasive. And he finally just shouts at one point, "The ice! It's gonna break!" You know, and it's just, it was not, it was Walken. It was not good. It was just.
Yeah, that's the most Walken moment
exactly.
in the movie. That is the Walken we've come to know and love. Right. The ice! It's going to break!
It's gonna break!
Like, I can't. Yeah, I can't quite do the voice, but yes, if you were doing a Walken impersonation, that is the line that you would use.
I don't know if Chris Walken is probably not available on Cameo. If it is, I think we need to like pitch in some money and have him hire him so he can say, "There's something wrong with the silo. There's something amiss in the silo. Anna,
the silo! It's gonna break!
Anna, there's something amiss in the silo." Sorry.
Oh man, they should cast him in season 2.
Yes, that'd be he could be like the head of another silo.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. That was almost excruciating to watch. Yeah. Although, if I'm gonna help the movie along here, it is a super desperate moment for him, right?
Yes, like, no. I could have you. I'm not saying like he should have been more persuasive. I'm saying like the way he was unpersuasive was not great. You know, like he could have been unpersuasive in a different way.
I'll pop in on this since we're on the subject of that triad, that relationship. In the book, that is really different.
Oh, okay.
In the book, it's sort of an interesting play on a trope that King is super interested in, which is the popular kid who actually has some troubles.
Oh,
like
that is different from what we see in the movie.
Yeah, in the sorry because you found the kid kind of say endearingly odd. I will
Yes.
go with maybe you were endeared by it. So go
No,
ahead.
I was. So first of all, I actually do think the best relationship in the film is between Walken and the kid. I mean, that's actually the most like warmth you see him express after the first few minutes with Brooke Smith. But the kid is just weird. This is like an early 80s thing where, maybe he was a little spectrum-y, but like first of all, I did love the computer that he was using. I actually said, Apple, he's in an Apple IIe. That's got to be an Apple IIe. But more importantly,
he's on an Apple II. Yeah.
More importantly, this kid's wardrobe was bizarre. Like the first time you see him, he is in a little 3-piece suit writing, and I'm like, in a like no kid would ever wear that. But then my favorite is like at the last time you see him, he is wearing a fully buttoned down cardigan. Like he looks like a mini 70-year-old as he's picking up the phone. I was laughing out loud. It was just a bizarre thing. It was just strange. Yeah.
That kid for all that weirdness, I have to say. I also love the way he refuses to go to the hockey game because he believes, Johnny.
Good for him.
In the book, the character is in high school and is a super popular jock who has dyslexia.
Oh, that actually is much more interesting. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and Johnny has to and the father has both insecurities about like the son not succeeding the way he should, and kind of angry about that. Like, look at him, like he has all these things going for him, and yet he won't succeed in this other way that I want him to succeed. And the kid has like also this like, I should be able to do this. I have all this shame around like I can't fucking read, although dyslexic people, it's not quite. It's handled pretty sensitively by King in that the kid isn't treated as being dumb, right?
No,
like it's just
he
needs a different way to learn.
Yeah.
Different way to learn how to read.
And I would say that the film actually gets at this well, and that it indicates that Johnny and him immediately hit it off, precisely because they sort of recognize the intelligence in the other, and that actually was effective.
Yeah. I don't have a ton else except for the sets are really bad and the scanner thing isn't a bad idea. But you have some more stuff, Dan?
The only last things I have is on the assassination attempt, which is, how to put this gently, Johnny is not the world's smartest assassin. He camps out the night before in the balcony, pretty and then when he puts the bullets in the rifle, drops one of the bullets, just was lucky there. On the other hand, that campaign did not have the world's best security, given that no one saw him. The one weird thing about it, and I don't know if this was because the film was on a small budget or whether Cronenberg did it or what have you, it is truly surreal to see the assassination attempt take place and then everyone leaves and it's just Sarah and Johnny there. Like there's no police, no EMTs, no security whatsoever at that point. It's just
no press.
It was just no press. Which they know, like all of that. It was just that it was an odd way to end. And I don't think that's me saying like that would never happen now. I don't think that would have happened back then either.
It's odd. No, I agree. It's all in the service of the movie. It's in the service of like having that last scene. Yeah, again, I think it's in a book you can be more leisurely and you can have more detail about what's going on. I also think in the book, I mean, this is such a this is such a trope, like the whole dead zone, hold up the baby thing is, although this, like other things we've talked about, even if you know the trope, like I still think this is worth seeing, even though you know it's coming.
No, the thing
in the book,
I would just close with that whole sequence is still disturbing in a variety of ways, even though it's been memed to death and like I knew it was coming. Like it there is a power to it that is profoundly disturbing.
And something to remember is that when the book came out and when I first read it, that was not as much in popular culture, and it is shocking. And it is shocking to Johnny. Like he thinks I'm going to kill this guy, right? And the reader thinks he's going to kill this guy, and the whole thing is set up and like he has to come to terms with taking a life. He's a teacher. He's a sensitive guy. He like has all this love. it's the baby Hitler problem, and he comes to terms with, I mean, but seriously, like, can I kill someone?
Right.
Like you or I, like any normal person, like even faced with the spectacular death of a Holocaust or World War III, could you find it within yourself to kill someone?
Yeah.
Could you personally take a life? It's one of those questions, like, we kind of are all like, yeah, sure, like, make it, put those stakes on the table. I probably could, but could you?
Right. It's like, can I
it's
like can I defeat a bear in combat or something? Yeah.
Or can I fly a plane?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And the book takes you up to him making this terrible decision that he will do this, and then it's taken out of his hands in this way that gives him grace, right? Like, he didn't have to kill the guy.
Yeah.
Like, he was able to stop the worst from happening without taking the stain on his soul of having to take a life.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So I think that's worth remembering, that, like, it's kind of a big deal in the arc of the character and of the morality. And also, like, if you want to say, like, I don't know, I feel kind of bad saying this, but, like, you know, you and I have talked about how the solution for hopelessness is action. And I don't want to say, like, you should be prepared to, like, kill somebody.
That's good. But, it's good you don't want to say that, Anna. That is very good that you do not want to say that.
But how about I say, like, we don't know if once we are prepared to, like, do something, I'm going to say it. Once we decide to move into the world in action, like, we don't know what the trickle down effects are going to be. That's all I'm going to say, Dan. Okay. Don't shoot anybody. Don't shoot anyone. Don't shoot anyone.
That's good advice.
Don't shoot anyone at all.
Yeah.
But it is good to understand the risks of doing something you've never. Okay, I'll stop.
Yeah.
I'm stopping, Dan, because I'm getting real close to telling you. Like, real close, real close. I'm just going to stop.
Walk, and you're not going to get to the end of that tightrope. And
I'm not. I'm just going to fall off I'm just going to dive into the net, Dan. I'm off the tightrope. I have just, like, I've been like, yep, net, catch me, and I was still over the net. That's the fun part about walking that tightrope. There was a place, if I kept walking, no net, no net.
Yes.
Underneath the tightrope anymore.
Correct.
I fell. I got caught by the net. Anyway, all right, so Dan, you've been writing about this shit that's happening.
Yes.
On your Substack.
I've been writing about it on the Substack. I'm going to be writing more about it on the Substack. It's kind of tough to avoid these days. I also had a piece in Politico about Trump's second-term foreign policy if he gets elected, and the really big effects it would have. So, you could check that out as well. Anna, are you still writing?
I'm still writing for the Substack, my very occasional one. I'm actually working on something that hopefully by Monday will be up about war photography. It is this time really going to be something. It's going to be kind of about the movie Civil War, but also about current politics, because I want to write about some of the photography that emerged from the assassination attempt. And a thought I had, which is that, like, all photojournalism can be war photojournalism if you're in the right place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And also about the uses of images of violence. So
excellent. That should be up by the time this podcast is released.
Yes. And mine is called Yours, Dresner's World. Mine is called civilwars.substack.com. I've also put some thoughts about this stuff up on my Instagram, which I'm at Anna Marie Cox. I'm supposedly on Threads, but that was an accident, and I have not posted there.
I am going to point
Dan is actually on Threads.
I'm on Threads, but I'm very giddy about the fact that over the last 6 months or so, Anna's given me shit about being on both Substack and Threads, and yet here we are. So sorry.
We're both on Blue Sky.
We are both,
and that's where
that's the primary.
Most of my social media
yes.
has taken place. It's funny. I want people to join Blue Sky, but at the same time, I don't want Blue Sky to get Twittered or shittered.
Well,
really,
like Blue Sky, I fear it's too late because
maybe.
We didn't talk about this, but the exodus of African American voices from Blue Sky, particularly Jamel Bowie, not good. really not good.
Yeah.
And
Tressie McCottom, I think, is the other.
And Adam Serwer's been pretty silent as of late.
No way, him too.
Well, I don't know if he's just gone dark. I don't know if he's gone like disappearing, but like the point is,
and it's over. It's just bullshit.
It's really
stuff
ridiculous bullshit. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, stay tuned, I guess, for whether or not that's. Oh, but you know what? If you are a patron, you're listening to this, and if you are a patron and you're not already on our Discord is awesome.
Get on the Discord
and friendly, and supportive, and will not hound you out for wrong things.
No, you will absolutely not be wronged out.
That's that. And next week, what are we talking about next week, Dan?
We are talking about A Canticle for Leibowitz.
Oh yeah, I have opinions.
Okay, looking forward to it.
So until then,
keep this channel open for more.